You guys. Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Should I use the mic? Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us at tonight's event. We are the Future Vets Club, and this is our Casper and Interview Achievers event. So thank you to everyone who came in person, to those who joined online, and a huge thank you to our 4 vet students who joined us today. So today we are lucky to be joined by Sanjoy, Jenna, Victoria, and Alexa. So these are Phase 1 veterinary medicine students who were the top 2 achievers in this past year's admissions cycle on the Casper test and on the interview. So congratulations. Yeah, round of applause for them. So they were kind enough to come today and share their advice as they were once in our place, as we're on our journeys to applying to the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. The format for today's meeting, we will have our 2 Casper achievers come up and give a quick presentation on their tips, and then we will have a Q&A session for the Casper achievers, and then we will move on to our interview, where each of the interview achievers will present their tips, and then we'll have a Q&A for that. So please just hold your questions until both presenters have gone. And yeah, so I will pass it off to Sanjoy to share her tips with us.
Make sure you turn the mic on the box. There's a little switch at the top. I'm mute.
What?
Here. Just that you can talk into the mic like this.
Hey. I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes so we can really enjoy our time together, you know. All right, hi everyone, my name is Sanjoy. I did my undergrad at McGill and I decided to pursue this profession like 2 years ago. And since then I've worked in a feline practice with laboratory primates and in wildlife, so feel free to ask me about that too. So to begin with, do you all know what Casper is? Like I don't have to. All right, I'll go over it briefly. So it's basically a written and a verbal test that tests various attributes of you. So that includes things like empathy and professionalism. So it includes questions about like, your group mate is not doing any work, what do you do next? But it also tests things like your personal values and boundaries. So for example, there's going to be questions like, you're moving to a new country and you don't know the language, what do you do? So it has questions like that. And it's based on like not giving you time to think, so it's really testing like what you truly believe in. You have, I think, like 30 seconds or a minute to actually think about the prompt and then answer 3 questions. And this test, while it says that it evaluates like 10 characteristics, it really is mainly about communication, your ability to speak about your thoughts and communicate that to the evaluator as concisely as possible. So I'm going to go over my personal experience for both the written and verbal components, and then I'm just going to talk about like extra advice that I guess doesn't really fall under one of those components specifically. So first, to talk about the written component, in my personal experience during the Casper, it's not really like anything surprising. It's exactly like the questions you'll see in your preparations. It's exactly like the sample that they give you. So if you do enough of the samples, you kind of see like the pattern and what's going on. I did the like 1 practice test that they offer on the website, but I did that last, so to sort of like really know what's going to happen to me during the day of. But before that, I used a website called Prep Match. It's a free website. They do the questions so that it's like the exact same like timing, and they use questions from previous tests, I believe. And there's also a component where you can give advice or feedback to other people's answers, and they can give feedback to you. But I wouldn't rely on that too much because a lot of the feedback is just like, you clearly wrote this because you had to write something. And something about the Casper is that because that you have very little time to actually respond, your speed of typing does matter. My words per minute is 63. I found that that was more than enough for me to type all of my answers within the time given. So you don't need exactly 63, but I would check your words per minute on like a typing speed test just to make sure it's not like 3 words per minute. I would work on that if it is. When answering on the website, it does say that you can use paragraphs or bullet points. It doesn't matter as long as you're concise. I use like bullet points and I did pretty well. So it's okay to not do like perfect paragraphs with perfect punctuation and spelling. That's perfectly fine. Don't feel that you have to like make everything perfect or you will fail. You'll be okay. And my last piece of advice that I wrote here on my iPad is to read all of the questions before you start answering. There's 3 questions per prompt. Sometimes you'll find that if you don't read it beforehand, you'll accidentally answer all the prompts in the first question. And you don't want to do that because then you'll go back and you'll have to like erase everything in like the 2 minutes you have to respond. All right, moving on to verbal. Again, the questions were exactly like the sample. I wasn't surprised by any of it. It's just scary on its own because it's the verbal component and you have to answer while looking at the camera and stuff. I would say like my #1 advice for that is don't aim for like perfect speaking. You all want to be veterinarians. You're not aiming to be like lawyers and stuff. It's okay if you don't say every single sentence perfectly. Just mainly work on being able to explain your thought process. Like you don't have to do it perfectly, but as long as you're able to explain your thought process in a linear fashion that's understandable for the viewer, you'll be okay. So that's called like road mapping. So like listing all the things you want to say, like 1, 2, 3, like just in a way that's understandable. If you want extra practice to do that before your Casper, I would recommend joining a club like Debate or Model UN or Mock Trial. That's going to give you like a lot of formal practice. I was part of the McGill debating union. I'm very bad at debating, but it is very helpful to get that like really beat into your head. And also, if you want to really sort of go for that extra spice, you can ask your friends to like listen to you talk about these prompts and ask them to evaluate your ability to be an engaging speaker, like eye contact, stuff like that. I don't know if that's really important, but like if you want to go that extra mile, I did do that with my friends. I got really tired of it, but I did do it. And that's going to be important for interviews as well. Okay, some extra advice I have written here. Be a good person. Oh yes, when you're talking about actions, there's always this meme that's like, when you're answering Casper questions, say like, confront them like non-judgmentally in a private setting. Yeah, use those buzzwords, they're important, but you have to explain why you're doing that. Like, don't just say I'm confronting them non-confrontationally, like say why. Is it because they could have personal matters going on that you can't see? Is it because you want to give everyone a second chance? You know, like always explain the actions that you're taking. When you're answering, don't compromise on your own boundaries too much. You can't just be like, I'll give them like infinite chances because I'm a nice person. No, you also have to be able to communicate that you have personal boundaries and that you can strike a balance because that is going to be important in this profession that you will all get into, I'm sure. And yeah, I already said it's okay to make spelling mistakes and miss punctuation. That's it. I'm sure you all do fine. That's it. I went 45 seconds over. You can't do that during the Casper, but I already finished the Casper, so it's okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, we can swap now to the next Casper Achiever. Thanks, Sanjoy. That was awesome. And you'll come back again for the Q&A.
Oh, God.
Okay. Yes, I'm gonna do that. And then that. And present. And hopefully that all works. Let me check here. Perfect. So let me just put my computer on Do Not Disturb because you don't have to see my Duolingo emails. Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right, can everyone hear me okay like this? Yes, perfect. All right, so my name is Jenna Skurnak. I'm a Phase 1 veterinary student at OVC, and today I'm going to speak to you about how to ace the Casper. So as Sundar said, this is an online open response situational judgment test evaluating social intelligence and professionalism, so specifically evaluating your values like ethics, collaboration, etc. It is composed of 2 sections, so there's a video response and a typed response, and it includes both word-based and video-based scenarios. So in that sense, you may have a word-based scenario and have to answer it in a typed response or a video response, and same goes for the typed response as well. It is 90 to 110 minutes in length, so it's not too bad, don't panic. And it is required for many North American and Australian veterinary medicine programs, specifically the Ontario Veterinary College. Okay, so you may think you're a super ethical person, you don't need to study for the Casper. Wrong, that is so not true. You definitely need to do some preparation for the Casper. For me, the number one resource that helped me was actually the practice tests as well as the problem-based sample scenarios on the website. The sample scenarios you can do without an account, but for the practice tests, you do have to make an account and register for the tests. And those are the best ways to really get a sense about what the test will encompass. So I would definitely recommend those. As a supplement, my biggest thing I will have to say is please don't pay for anything. A lot of these things you can get for free. The practice tests are completely free. And then the supplemental resources I put down there are also free. So please do not waste your money on any prep courses for this. You'll do great without them, so don't even stress. But I did put a couple other here that I use, the BMO Casper test prep practice questions. I put the link there, as well as a YouTube video from an academic consulting group, how to ace the Casper test. Those things really helped me. The practice tests from the Casper website don't come with answers because there isn't really a right answer for these types of tests, but the BMO as well as the YouTube video do have sample answers which can help to guide you as well. Okay. All right, so I do have some tips and tricks just going off of that. Really important when you're answering those ethical questions, validate both perspectives. So I know we really feel like from the get-go we want to jump the gun and come up with an answer right away. Really important to emphasize that we're validating both perspectives. We're looking at both sides. And then after we do that and collect all our information, then we want to make a firm decision and justify. So we don't want to be wishy-washy the whole way through. We want to validate those perspectives, then come to a decision and justify why we're making that decision. And that's really important and something they're going to want to see during the Casper. Another piece of advice I have is practice preparing your personal scenarios to general questions ahead of time. You will see as you're doing these practice questions, there's a general trend of the types of questions you're going to get. So to help ease your stress during that test and feel prepared, I would recommend coming up with those personal examples. So things like dealing with group conflict, personal versus work boundaries, making a difficult decision, coming up with your own personal experiences for those types of questions were really helpful. Okay, and that is it. I know we do have a Q&A session after this, but feel free to always send me an email during your application process. I'm more than happy to answer any questions specifically to Casper, but also if you just have questions about vet school in general, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer, okay? So thank you so much for listening today, and I'm sure you guys will do great, so don't even worry.
Okay, so we'll have our Q&A session now. I'll open up the chat so that you guys can look here too. Although it would be nice to keep that up, but that's okay. Yeah, so online, feel free to ask questions as well.
Yeah.
How long before your Casper did you guys start preparing?
Do you want to go first?
I can't even remember, man. This was like a year ago. I think I started preparing like a week and a half before.
Okay.
You don't have to, it's not like a lot of the questions are kind of like intuitive. Like there is a pattern and you will need to do practice to get to know the patterns, but it's not like you have to memorize anything. So it's just like, give yourself as much time as you think you will need, but don't take more just because you think you have to. I would say that. I have med school friends that got into med school this year that practiced literally 2 days before and it was fine. That doesn't mean you should do that though. That was an example.
Yeah, for me, I would say I started like lightly studying 2 or 3 weeks before, but I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time doing it. Really, I started with those questions on the Casper website, the QD Insights website first. Then so the sample-based scenarios, then I went to the BMO and watched the YouTube video, and then I did the practice test last. But I would say if you're like short on time, or if you're like, you know what, I just want to do what I need to do, just doing the sample-based scenarios and practice tests, I think you'll be fine. The BMO and the YouTube video are good for kind of seeing how like you should answer those types of questions. Like they give you feel for, you know, how to write them. But yeah, I would say like what mirrors those questions the most would be the ones on the Casper website. So yeah. Is there anything? Any other questions? Or even about the application process in general?
Or vet school.
Yeah.
Does Casper cost money when you add that?
It does cost money. Yes, I think it was around $40.
$40.
Yeah, it was $40, at least for me as a Canadian. Oh, you went to McGill, right?
I know Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember. Probably $40.
Yeah,
I believe Jenna.
Yeah, I think it was $40. Yeah, so nothing like too crazy, but yeah, you do have to pay for it.
I want to add a good resource is actually Reddit. Like if you go on Reddit and search for like Casper advice, some of that might be helpful. I did that a lot.
There's a question online.
Oh. So I think for me, I use sentences, but you definitely can use bullet points as well. If you're someone who tends to like ramble on and kind of find it hard to get to the point, I think bullet points would be helpful. I think I just used long sentences because that was more intuitive for me when I was doing it, because like Sindra said, you do have, you are under time pressure, so practicing your typing can be beneficial. So if you're a slower typer, maybe bullet points is better. And if you take longer to kind of get to your point, maybe bullet points is better. But it doesn't really matter. I use full sentences. Yep.
If you have to repeat the Casper test, is it the same each time?
I believe so. Yeah, I only wrote it once, but I believe.
The cost when I first started was like, I think honestly $10 when I applied the first time. It did have a price increase to 40 now. So you do have to pay each time.
Yeah. And then when I did my Casper, the first time I did it, they didn't have the video responses, it was
Yes.
just type responses. The second time I did it, it had both video and type.
So that means it's just continuously changing.
Yeah, and they're different
Mhm.
questions, so like every time I did it.
And I will have to say too, so Acuity Insights is the company that runs the Casper test. There are different tests on the website, so it's not just Casper. So be careful, make sure that you look before you apply as to what tests you need to do. Some will be Casper and Snapshot, depending on the program, Casper and Duet. OVC was just the Casper, so just make sure that you know what tests you need to do and that you're not doing more than you need to do as well.
I think when we did it also, the video component was like, we didn't know if OVC took that score. I don't know if that's changed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
that's
never
right.
got confirmed whether like OVC
Yeah.
takes the video score. I guess if you can check that and like they don't, you don't have to worry about it as much. I didn't have any way of checking
I
it.
think the video score they took, it was the snapshot, the extra video component.
Oh, I
that
didn't
they
do the
don't take.
snapshot.
No, I didn't do it either. You don't have to do the snapshot for any. Yeah,
They
the
take it?
video they
Okay.
take, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so you were saying that like when you answer the questions, you want to like, gather more information and then come to a solid conclusion. But when you're like using hypotheticals, like I would talk to them and if they say this, then I do that. How do you form a solid conclusion without being able to actually gather more information? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah.
I think the point of the Casper is to capture what your thought process is immediately upon hearing a situation. So they're not asking you to like mind map every possible outcome. It's just sort of like, what's my immediate response to this? Like you can include if you have time, like if it turns out that this person has something going on in the background, I will like make sure to give them another chance if you can. But the most important thing is sort of capturing what you think the time of.
Yeah, so I'll try and give you an example for that. So let's say you have a sample question that is, you're in a group project, you're having trouble with a group member, she's slacking off, maybe she has other reasons for slacking off, what are you gonna do? And in that sense, you could say, okay, well, maybe I'll talk to her first and I'll figure out why. If maybe she is struggling, then I'll talk to the rest of my group and we'll figure out as a group how we're going to divvy up the work. But if it turns out she's, just not doing the work, maybe I'll approach it this way. So you can kind of use like the if then situation, or just say, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. We'll divvy up the work. This is why. Does that make sense, kind of? It depends how much time you have too, and depends how fast you can type. But I think really just kind of even mentioning, I'm gonna collect as much information as I can. I'm gonna talk to both sides before I make the decision. In my gut instinct, this is what I feel like I should do, and this is why.
So you don't have to like pick a solid answer, you can kind of mind map what you would do.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's a good question. So I think in the end, you should definitely come up with a decision. So you could say, maybe I'll give another example. Let's say you have to decide if you are going to your best friend's birthday party or if you're going to study your exam tomorrow. That one's more personal, so that one's probably an easier example to go off of. So you could say, well, she's my best friend, so I'm going to choose to go to the birthday party, and here's why. Or you're going to say, this exam is really important, I'll have other opportunities to celebrate with my friend, and here's why. Does that kind of make more sense? Yeah.
In that example specifically, would you say it's not ideal if you say, she's my best friend, so I'll go for like 30 minutes to like be there, like spend some time with her, but then I'll leave early so I can go back home to study?
You can say that too. What I will say is that they like having firm answers, choosing one or the other. It's not that either way is wrong, but they don't really like you being wishy-washy. But I mean, that is something you could say. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Can I
Yeah.
add on to that?
Yeah, you can add on to it for sure.
I actually slightly disagree.
Okay.
With that, I mean, we don't actually know how this is marked, but
Yeah.
I know the way I answered is like, it's okay to make compromises. Like the point of the Casper isn't to like solve every situation. You can have open-ended decisions because not every situation can be solved. So I think it would be okay to say that, but you have to be able to explain why you're doing both. You can't just say like, I'm gonna go for 30 minutes so I can have fun and then I'm gonna study. Okay, but why are you going for 30 minutes? Is it to make your friend feel good? Is it to make sure she feels appreciated? Do you think 30 minutes is enough? Why 30 minutes? So it's just like, if you're going to make a compromise, you need to be able to explain why, but that kind of applies to any decision you make, whether or not it's a firm yes or no. Who was the person that was? Okay, we're also gonna answer the ones in the chat, I promise.
Yeah.
Okay, should we just quickly answer those?
Sure. This Casper test that you have to retake.
Yes, you have to
Sure.
retake the test every year if you don't get in that year, and you can only do it once per year, I believe. So if you get a bad quartile score, unfortunately, you have to wait until the next year. You're recording and submitting a video, so you don't see who's evaluating. Also, something to note is that each evaluator only evaluates one question, I think. So you can use bullet points for one question, paragraphs for the next. The evaluators don't see your other answers. So it's okay to completely like switch up your style if you really wanted to.
Does he have a deadline for the Casper test?
That was
Yes.
answered by Melissa Fang.
Okay.
Thanks. We don't know how it's graded.
Yeah, no. It said that they have only used the type responses for the past one. They are grading, yeah, so just to answer this question, are they grading the video response this year? Last year it said they were only using the typed responses for the final score and the videos were just a trial one. They are grading both, yes. I believe both of our scores encompass both, from what I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of a video, do they only look at the content, or do they also look at like body language? Like, even like what you're wearing, how you present yourself, like does all of that matter?
Their official stance is that they don't care like what you look like or like how you're answering. And the FAQ it does say like obviously don't wear pajamas, like wear something that you can wear on the street. I want to say yes, it's just based on the content and not like your tone of voice or how it's delivered, but like the evaluators are human. They are going to take into account, like if you're just staring at the ground the whole time, they're probably going to take that into account, unfortunately, but we also don't know because we don't have a rubric.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think just answer them as if you're doing an interview. I think that's the best way to look at it. So you don't have to like dress up completely and go all out, but just, you know, make eye contact with the camera, nice posture, like how you would for an interview. And I think if you just look at it that way, that might help. Yeah.
Just for my notes, because
my biggest fear for this is the timing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break down, like, you said you have like 30 seconds to a minute to look at your question,
Mm-hmm.
and then how long do you have to use for your response, and then how many questions is that in that 110 minutes?
Yes, so the reason why it was 90 to 110 minutes is they give you an optional break in between. So you can choose not to take that break and then it'll only be 90 minutes, or you can take that break. I believe it's like, 10 minutes? Yeah, I believe it's 10 minutes. In terms of how long you have to write it, I don't remember exactly. It is on the website if you want us. Do you want us to pull the website up now, or they can look at it after?
I think it's 3 minutes to answer all 3
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
But some questions are very short, like 1 sentence, you can answer it.
Mm-hmm.
When did you get your scores back? Like, how soon was it, and how do you, like, give that to the vet schools?
So,
Distribute it?
So they distribute it automatically. You just need to say that you're applying to the Ontario Veterinary College, and then it'll send it to OVC. I think it was about a month after.
Like a month, 2 months later?
Yeah, because I think I wrote it end of January, and I got my results back maybe in February.
And they'll email you the results?
They tell you the quartile, so
Mhm.
1 to 4, 4 being the highest. Like, we don't know what percentile we're in.
Yep.
So once you get your quartile, if you figure it out, do they provide any feedback whatsoever?
No, so you just get told whether you're first, second, third, or fourth quartile, and that's it. Yeah. Yeah, so I think kind of going back to what we said before, we don't know how they mark it. So like we have different opinions as to how we would go about answering the questions, but at the end of the day, they're gonna mark it how they're gonna mark it, and we don't know because we don't get any feedback. So it's not to say like go with this approach or go with this approach. I think a commonality for both of us is just to make sure you're justifying every answer. So if you choose to make a firm decision on this question and you want to compromise on another question, great, make sure to say why. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes, and even though like there's things that you will probably think they want to hear, I think it's best not to like lie or just say what you think
sure.
they want to hear, because you don't have time to make up reasons why you believe that's true. Just go with what you actually believe in. You only have time to actually put down what you think. And also I feel like you guys might want to know this. So, I mean, I was in the 4th quartile, like obviously Jenna was in the 4th quartile, but I also know some of my classmates were in the 3rd quartile. So you don't have to be in the 4th quartile to get in.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe the last question answer one from the chat.
You poor girls, even in vet school. Excuse me, Carmela. No need to call us out like that. Vet school's hard, okay?
I was just saying I felt bad for you guys. I didn't mean it as something bad.
The Casper test and when you're going to apply to, yes. So I'll say for me, I wrote the Casper test the last day I could write the Casper test. So maybe don't do that. So I cut it a little close, but yes, I believe the Casper scores had to be submitted, what was it, March 1st. I wrote it January 26th, and that was like the last
Me too.
do it. Yes. Yes, so.
It says on the website, like, there's like a thing where you can select the school you're applying to and they'll give you the last day.
They'll give you the last day, yeah.
It's on the website.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
I don't even know what you're showing me.
Okay. If anyone has other questions, you can, Jenny, you shared your email.
You can also email me, like that's cool. It's xias@uofgold.
Sure, yeah, write it up there.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Why did I make it so big?
Okay, we can get Victoria to come up. Make sure to hold the mic close to your face. Okay, can you guys hear me? I'm pretty loud by myself, but I'm Victoria and I came from Windsor, Ontario, so I'm about 3 hours away. I finished my undergrad, so I completed all 4 of my years at the University of Windsor, and I did my bachelor's in science in health and biomedical sciences. So it was a program that kind of really set me up with all of the prerequisites that I needed to apply for vet school. I actually didn't get in on my first attempt. I did make it to interview rounds. I completed my interview, but I didn't get accepted. So when I applied the second time, I really had a good idea what the interview was going to look like going into it. And I really just took all of the kind of feedback that I got, just kind of talking to my peers and talking to everybody else. OPC doesn't provide you feedback for your interview. So I really took that and talked to my peers, reflected, and then I continued on for my second interview. And I'm going to kind of share some of the tips and some of the strategies that I used to kind of make that transition from not being accepted to getting in for the class of 2027. So it is the format, just so you guys know, has moved to virtual now. It's been virtual, I believe, for the past couple of years. It does still try to mock the MMI format, so the multiple mini interviews format. There are 4 stations that you'll go to, just kind of moving virtually through them. You'll have 2 minutes to prepare your answer for the prompt that they provide you. And then you'll have 5 minutes to actually speak your response in front of the evaluators. The evaluators don't speak to you, they don't interact with you in any way, so you are just talking to them. So one of the key things is just kind of to really emulate your personality and really make that shine through, because they're not really providing you feedback. So if you go in, give them a smile, let them know that you're really happy to be there and you're really excited to kind of share your answers and share your thoughts. Sometimes they'll give you a smile, sometimes they'll just kind of stare stone-faced at you and you just have to power through. But the best that you can do to kind of make it a positive experience for yourself is really going to help you excel. And the questions that they're asking are all very personal questions for the most part. Casper really does take care of that ethics portion, so they're not going to ask you really any ethics related questions. They really want to know about your experiences, why you want to become a veterinarian, and what really is important to you. And if you do have anything that kind of makes you unique in areas that you really like to study, or something that you're really passionate about or driven for, they really do want to hear about it, and that's what they're looking for oftentimes in the interview. I know Sunjoy had mentioned road mapping for Casper. That's also going to be very important for your interview questions as well. You only have 5 minutes. It does seem like a lot of time. It can seem really daunting to know how I'm going to fill 5 minutes and speak about a certain question, but the time really does go quickly, especially if you're not prepared. So really take your time in the 2 minutes in between questions, roadmap your answer, have points down that you want to make, have a very nice intro. Your intro should be pretty consistent throughout each of your questions. You are getting different evaluators for each question. So really take the time to introduce yourself, let them know your background, let them know that you're excited to be there, and then hop into your answer. And really give them, say, I would love to answer this question. These are the things I'm going to touch upon. Give your responses for each of your points, and then have a nice little conclusion for your answer. That is going to be the best way to roadmap your answer, so you have a clear plan in your mind. You know how to use your 5 minutes to respond to their questions and touch upon each of the questions that they ask you, because they're all multiple parts to each question within. So really take your time to make sure you're hitting on everything. If you have a really big passion for equine, make sure they know that you're really passionate about studying equine medicine. If you're really interested in parasitology, make that very clear. You should prepare and go into it knowing what experiences you've had and be able to talk about them and reflect upon them in a very positive way. So between my first and second interview, I did work with a mentor for my second time around, and it was someone who I didn't really know super well, so he was very happy to give me very honest feedback and really work with me. I know talking to the doctors that sometimes you guys work with or you shadow with, it can be hard for them to kind of give you really good feedback because it's a personal relationship oftentimes that you have with them. So introducing this third person, he was really happy to work with me, really happy to give me very honest feedback. And we had practice sessions where we would just mock the interview through and through. We'd run through it, we'd answer 4 questions, and then he'd give me feedback at the very end. So it was very true to the format of the interview. So if you can take the time to run through that, that's going to be a really big help to know how you're going to roadmap your answer, how you're going to use 5 minutes, and how you're really going to drive home why you want to become a veterinarian, what experiences you've had that have led you to this path already, which I'm sure you guys already have plenty if you're planning to apply to OVC. One thing that I'm really passionate about that I made sure to drive home in each of my responses is microbiology. So every opportunity I could to touch upon my love for microbiology, I would really let them know because I thought that set me apart from a lot of other people. Talking about any research opportunities that you've had. Something unique for mine was that I did research in a pedagogical kind of way. So I didn't really work in a laboratory. I worked with students within my university to talk to them and kind of reformat a first-year lab. So things that you don't think apply to veterinary medicine still really do, as long as you're showing a really deep passion to want to help people, to want to help animals, and to really be dedicated to teaching and learning as well. Those are going to be the main things that they're looking for. And honestly, just presenting yourself in a great manner. Good posture, as we were talking about, making eye contact. I know it's hard through a webcam, but just letting them know. Be really empathetic, but also be really apathetic as well. And just kind of really emulate the person that you are as much as you can through the webcam. It does make it very challenging. It was one of the drawbacks to doing it virtually, because I find that speaking for myself, person to person, is kind of how I really let my personality shine through. So the best that you can do to really mock that is going to help you really excel in the interview. I'm going to pop my email address on the whiteboard or on the chalkboard as well. You guys are welcome to email me about any questions that you have, whether it be throughout the admissions process, the interview as well. I know it's very daunting, but I know you guys will all really excel and it will be okay. If you don't get in the first time, I'm here to tell you that everything will work out. Take any time in between to really grow and really excel and really get the experiences that you want. And I know it will set you guys up on the right path. You guys are already in Future Vets Club. You're doing great things. So you're already on a great path there. And if you need any recommendations, any tips, any work, I'm happy to work with any one of you as well.
Do I have to change it to a different, it's already on it? Heck yeah.
Sweet. Sorry.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Is this okay? Okay, perfect. So how to prepare for your vet school and Casper.
Is it still sharing on people's screens online? Oh my goodness gracious. One more time, you guys. This one's it. Good? Yeah, amazing.
And you can hear me? Can they hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, they may have missed the first part, but you can see who I am. Okay, so moving into the 3 steps I want to cover today for steps to prepare for your interview. So the first one being know your BIF, the second one being record yourself, and lastly, to practice with others. I will say I'm kind of basing this presentation off on my experiences with the OVC application and their interview process. I only applied and interviewed with OVC, so I don't know too much the process with other schools. Also, what worked for me might not work for you. That's why I kind of suggest prepping early, dipping your toes into, practicing for your interview so that you can kind of figure out what works best for you. Okay, so step 1 for preparing for your interview is really going over your background information form. So that's the BIF that I will be referring to, and you submit that in, I think it's like February 1st. You don't hear back about an interview until May. So that break of time, honestly, I forgot half the things that I submitted on there. So it's really good to know your BIF because, like you said, there's going to be questions on the interview basically just about your experiences. The interviewers also do not have access to your BIF, so you are a brand new face to them. When you see them on the screens, you're brand new, so you really have to use your experiences to guide them through your pathway in vet med in your different answers. It's also important to get comfortable with talking out loud about yourself. So while you're reading through your BIF, maybe make up some of those mock interview questions to get a feel for what different experience works best for what type of question. Remember, this can also include your vet, your non-vet, your animal and non-animal related experiences. So a little bit of an example of an answer that I kind of formatted when I was doing my practicing that I can give you is my experience as an intern at a wildlife rehabilitation center exposed me to the importance of wildlife disease control and wildlife research. I would help the vets prepare samples of potential avian influenza cases, which they got sent to OVC's animal health laboratories. I would love the opportunity to study at one of the most research-intensive schools in Canada and to expand my knowledge of epidemiology through the OVC's curriculum. So as you can see, I took my experience, related it to OVC and what I learned from it. I will say, definitely don't lie because they really can see right through it. So this was an honest experience. I did get to help out with these vets and got to submit samples to AHL. And then I did a tour of OVC and actually saw animal health laboratories and really made that connection. So don't lie about it, really be honest. But while you're reading through your BIF, you're able to really find those relationships there. So the next thing, I'll warn you, this is going to feel extremely weird and a little bit embarrassing, but please record yourself. It really helped me. I was able to really reflect and perfect my online presence through watching myself over. It is weird, I'll be honest, but I was able to really make note of my eye contact, my volume, my pace, my posture, the hand gestures I would use, the different filler words I would use, and I just kept recording myself and was able to really see the relationships between, when I started my preparation versus closer to my actual interview. I also use this time, like we've discussed, this is an online interview, so trying on different outfits, checking different backgrounds, I was able to find a space that I felt the most comfortable in and that was the most least distracting for the interviewers while they were watching me. And so the last thing I'll say is to practice with others. This is where I got the most feedback and advice on how I was actually answering the questions and presenting myself. I had a current vet student to tell me that I looked kind of sad on camera. And so then looking into answering questions later on, I made sure to really have that smile on my face and sound a little bit more bright. Because again, it's non-conversational. You're talking to a camera. They are not even allowed to smile at you. So it can feel a little bit weird. So really, have that big personality so they can see that. Again, that is specific to OVC. I don't know quite about other schools. It's very difficult to interview on camera. I will say one thing that is kind of nice is when you're doing eye contact, you're looking at the video camera, not actually at the screen. So sometimes when you're just focused on looking at the video camera, you're not seeing their blank faces. So that can actually really help because again, they aren't allowed to have any facial expressions. They're not allowed to use hand gestures. So it can be a little difficult. So even when you are practicing with others, I told my family, my friends, I'm like, be blank faced. Don't give me any reactions, because I wanted to feel comfortable talking about myself for 5 minutes straight with somebody who kind of looks unimpressed or not very interested. That being said, sometimes you can get some smiles and it does really make you feel good. So I was in your spot at one point. I was in Future Vets Club as well. So I used to go to different events like this. I did also do the Future Vets Club mock interviews. You guys run the international ones and the national ones. I was lucky. I think if not enough people sign up for the international, they do let some domestic students do that. So I did both. And then I did pay for a resource. I did meet up with an OVC student through Accepted Together. I think I did just one session, but just because I didn't have any friends in vet school, so I wanted kind of their viewpoint on how I was practicing. So in summary, I recommend knowing your BIF, recording yourself, and practicing with others, and that will hopefully make you ace your vet school interview. I want to say thank you so much for listening to this short little presentation. I hope there's some feedback that you're able to take home with you. On a side note, when I got my interview invitation, I was working full time and I wasn't really able to dedicate a whole lot of time to studying. So I want you guys to know that it's not like I spent 8-hour days just practicing. And I think that benefited me because I was a little bit less scripted and it just came really natural to me. But again, do what works best for you. Don't give up. I was there once too. You got this. And thank you guys again.
If you want to come back up, and I'll pull up the chat here as well.
And that's my email too. Email me with anything.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you guys.
Of course.
Okay, let's pull up the chat here. Yeah, so online, feel free to ask questions, and audience, feel free to ask questions.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, are you able to write things down? Like, I'm assuming for the 2-minute period you are. But
Yeah.
I guess it's not beneficial to you.
They actually encourage you to have blank paper in front of you, so that way you can quickly jot down some notes in that 2-minute period.
Okay. And just a personal question, were you referring to that piece of paper at some points, or you tried to steer away?
As best as you can to really not keep glancing down. It is really distracting for people watching you because they can really track your eyes, especially when it is just a webcam that you're facing.
Yeah.
So as best as you can to not look down at the paper and just kind of read off of it. They really do want to see that you're engaging with them and making eye contact with them. If you quickly need to glance down, that's fine. Don't make it super obvious, and don't make it 3 minutes worth of your 5 minutes that you're speaking.
Exactly. And yeah, I think I put a little sticky note by my camera just to make sure that I was looking at the camera, but also you're not staring. I think even in my practice, my friends were like, stop staring me down. And so if you have to move your eyes around, use your hands, it just does make it feel a little bit more natural. Even though you're stressed, you just kind of want to stare. Yeah, doing things like that is good.
Thank you.
So since it's different interviewers for each question, did you find that you said a lot of similar things in your answers to every question? Or was there a lot of repetition in the intro and the topics you brought up?
Yes and no. That's why the good thing with knowing your BIF, a lot of these questions, you can Google vet school personal questions, and you're able to find a pretty good gist of the type of questions they're going to ask. And so when I was looking over my BIF, I kind of found different experiences that work best for different questions. And then when I had my actual interview, kind of worked out because I was able to, even though it was different interviewers, I knew one experience was better for this kind of answer, but there was some overlap, especially with some of those smaller experiences. You might be saying when I was a vet assistant, but also I did some peer mentorship, and then I threw that in a couple other places. So yeah.
And just to add, I know I was kind of really trying to drive home anything that you think kind of gives you a unique identifier and something that you're really passionate about. As many times as you can bring it up, bring it up. It's going to be different people each time. They don't know that you're going to talk about it in another question, and really just kind of drive it home to them what you're passionate about. If it's something very unique or a very unique experience that you had, as many times as you can try to apply it to a situation, then use it to answer the question. Yeah. Okay, so how much do you feel it's important to focus on your animal experiences versus other life experiences? Obviously, you need to speak about your passion for vet med, but do you feel that the interviews are more to get a sense of you as a person or specifically your animal experiences? Not a long question, you're good. So I think the interview really is just kind of trying to get to know you as a person. They're going to have looked at your background information form already, which you clearly have to define your animal experiences that you have. So you will touch upon them to answer questions. They do want to see you bringing that information in. But as I had mentioned, I had a really kind of unique experience in research that didn't apply at all to vet med, but I was able to make that connection because pedagogy is pretty important in vet med too. You're constantly trying to like think of ways to learn different material and apply it to something new, as well as trying to teach others and your peers around you. So I kind of made that connection towards vet med and let them know that I was really excited to be teaching people. I also volunteered with Let's Talk Science, which doesn't really correlate with vet med, but that was a really big portion of some of my experience. And just through that, I let them know that I was really passionate about teaching others. I found it very fun to kind of get people excited. And as if I could bring in a vet med related lesson or animal related lesson into Let's Talk Science, that was something that really excited me. But if it doesn't reply or you don't have animal experiences that apply to a certain situation or question that they're asking, they really are just trying to kind of get to know you as a person and what really drives you.
Yeah, I'd say the exact same thing. Also, too, they know that we are applying to vet school and we are animal lovers. And so, like, for me, I was almost worried. I was like, do I have too much? My hobby is horseback riding, which is an animal sport. But they, like I said, they know that we do this. We absolutely love it. And so my dog walking experience, my horseback riding experience, yeah, they're not vet related. They weren't necessarily with a veterinarian, but they were still points that I could use and talk about. And they did just happen to involve animals. So.
There's also another question online that's just asking about GPA averages when we applied, because they know that OVC often refers to marks as well, and that's a pretty big stressor for someone. Personally, I did not calculate my GPA. I took what courses were best for myself and used them. Grades to me are always just kind of it can make stresses really high, and I really didn't want to focus on that and have that really kind of tear down my confidence in terms of me applying. I put my best foot forward. I took the classes that I knew I had really high marks in, and you guys can really mix and match what courses apply for your prerequisites. So as long as you feel confident about them, I would say that's pretty good. I know the averages over the last couple of years with COVID have kind of been creeping up and up. I do believe they are starting to come back down now. So just me personally, that was a really big stress in my life. I did not calculate my GPA. I know it was higher. I don't know grade point averages. My school didn't use like 4.0 grade scale. Of the prerequisites that I had, I would estimate I had about a 94 average. Between my entire degree though, my average was probably lower. So it was probably closer to like 90, 91.
I will say I had 89, so you don't have to put that in to get into vet school, and that was my prerequisite.
And that's why I don't want to bring grades into it.
With grades, like the one thing I think our grades are climbing a little bit down after those kind of online semesters that there was a little bit of grade inflation. So they are climbing down, which is good. I also think with the involvement of Casper, that goes in technically to your GPA calculation. That being said, how OVC does work, at least what I've heard from other students, is, you have 600 people or whatever apply, and they rank you based on grades for the top 200. Of those people that have any red flags on their application, they'll take them off the top 200 and somebody in 201 will jump up. They offer interviews to the top 200, and then your interview is still only worth 30%. So yes, grades definitely matter. I know it sucks. I didn't get in the first time. I didn't even get an interview. I think because my grades at that point were a little lower, and they probably, I just didn't make the cutoff. But then the second time I applied, obviously I got in, and I think the average that I'd applied with was like a 90.8 like it was 90.8, I think. So just kind of like low end 90s. But again, like first year, I would never change what I did. I had a whole lot of fun in first year, probably had a 65 average, maybe not. But anyways, all of these things make you who you are. If it means you have to take an extra semester to upgrade your grades, do it. If it means you have to take an extra semester to upgrade your experiences, do it. There's really no rush. And I've talked to many other vets who have said the same thing. Take your time, because once you get in, you'll be so happy that that was the time that you got in.
Mm-hmm. Any more on here? There's this one here. So just about specific hours listed on background information form. What did you do for experiences that were full-time in the summer, but then nothing in the school year? As best as you can to like approximate it. I know I didn't sit there and calculate each of the hours that I had. I had been working at a clinic for 7 years. I was like, it's going to be several thousand hours at this point. So as best as you can to approximate it, it's really not that important. They're really just trying to see that you do have at least some animal experience. They're really not focused on the number that you put in there. So if it's for the summer, estimate as best as you can. If it's like 2 hours a week for all 4 like months of summer, whatever it is, then just estimate as best as you can. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
This question related to grades, maybe save to the end, just
Sure.
save to the end.
Sure.
Yeah. Ones for the time.
What did you do during the year that you had between your first and second application? I can go first. So the first time I applied, I honestly wasn't the most confident because I had that lower average, but also my experiences were good, but I wasn't the most confident with my application. That being said, I was like, you know what, I'll pay to do the Casper, I'll pay to apply just so I can get a feel with what the application process is like. If I happen to get an interview, if I happen to get in, fantastic. If not, I wasn't too upset. And so I'd already planned that summer that I was applying. I moved to Nova Scotia and worked at a wildlife rehab. And then after the summer, I moved back to Toronto. I was still working at a small animal GP. I did some like college royal through the University of Guelph with the beef and dairy cattle handling because I didn't have any sort of handling experience there. And then I also got a new job working in the ICU of a large-scale emergency and referral hospital.
Yeah, between my first and second application, I finished up my degree, so I graduated the summer of my first application. So a couple months after I think I had my interview, I had graduated, or however the time frame had worked out. I was already working, I had finished my degree, so I honestly just took a year to work full-time. I had been at the clinic I was at for several years, so I just took on a full-time position there as a VA. I traveled a little bit. I kind of took time for myself. And then it was only when I started to kind of get ready for applications the second time around that I kind of started focusing a little bit more on that, but it didn't take up a lot of my time, in complete honesty. With Casper, as they were saying, I spent a couple days maybe preparing, probably not even more than a week. In terms of my interview for the second time around, in comparison to my first, I kind of went into it very blindly. So I really wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know if they were going to ask me ethic questions, if they were going to ask me personal questions, just kind of what the feel for it was overall. So I was a lot more confident going into the second time when I did see that I had an interview. And I really just kind of took the questions. I tried to make note of whatever questions they had asked me the first time around, use those as a jumping point, built my answers, and really had a good foundation for those. I really didn't do anything extraordinary in my year in between, though. That's just to let you know, it doesn't need to be filled kind of trying to cram every single possible animal-related thing you can. Take time for yourself if it doesn't happen the first time around. I know I really needed that time for myself, too.
Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you recommend buying a proper webcam to put on your camera for the interview, or is your laptop camera?
I use my laptop camera. I have a Lenovo. It worked well enough. My face was clear. People could hear me properly.
Yeah.
I use my laptop camera.
Same.
Is there a timer so you can see how long?
Yes. Yeah. And when your timer's up, it automatically puts you into the next room.
Yes.
So yeah, like you basically It opens up after you've read your prompt. It has 2 faces. You say, you know, hi, my name is Alexa. Thank you so much for being here today. Today I'm going to talk about blank, blank, blank. Have your explanation. And then at the end, if you can, do a little summary or a little thank you so much.
So
That's why
happy
it's
to be
nice.
here.
Like I think at 4 minutes and 30 seconds was when I was like, okay, I gotta wrap it up. This is when I'm gonna say my quick goodbyes. Because if you're rambling and not paying attention to the time, you'll be mid-sentence, and same like Casper, it's like on to the next one. So
I also just want to really drive home, if you're not great at speaking, they really don't care if you stumble on your words a little bit. A big thing with who I was, like my mentor that I was working with, was just having humility for yourself. If you don't say a word properly, laugh it off, correct yourself, take the time. Don't speed through the 5 minutes. Really just kind of pace yourself, have a nice kind of conversational tone to your voice. And if you mess up, stumble on your words, it's not that big of a deal. As best as you can to kind of emulate that you're like not stressed about it. I know you're going to be super stressed about it, but
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you finish early, like if you happen to, or you're kind of just sitting there in silence.
Yeah, so my first interview, one of the questions was kind of challenging for me. It just wasn't something that I was expecting. We're not technically supposed to speak on the questions that they ask us, unfortunately. So one of the questions just threw me for a loop. I really didn't know how to answer it. I think I used 4.5 minutes and I had already said my goodbyes, and I just sat there for 30 seconds. And I was like, thanks again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that big of a deal. If you can just kind of, like I said, play it off.
Yeah, and just still
That's
like
most important.
Look in the camera with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Don't ramble. If you're done and you feel happy with your answer, that's what the vet students said when I did my mock interview. They just said, don't ramble, because then that great answer you had is now going to sound like you're just trying to make up time. But still, like, don't like look sad and be like, okay, I'm done. Like, definitely like smile to the camera, be happy that you're there. It's awkward, but it's awkward for them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I know. Actually, yeah.
So if it's 2 minutes to prepare and 5 minutes to answer, so 7 minutes and then 4 stations.
Yeah.
20 minutes. So is it roughly like half an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys avoid cliches? Like, what do you recommend to avoid?
In terms of what?
I mean, it could be your personal essay, just speaking. Like, let's say, do you guys find that when you're talking, you hit like cliches, and that kind of slowed your roll? What were things that, like, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like I feel like definitely when you always worry that you're going to sound like every other student a little bit, because we are pretty similar in the sense that we all have, maybe small animal experience. We all do this. So you do worry sometimes, am I sounding too much like them? But like I said, like, for example, you want to give them, in a sense, maybe what they want to hear. So when you're using your experiences to relate to OVC, they're obviously going to be very happy for that because you are applying to OVC. But again, you want to stay away from lies. Like if you're talking about a small animal experience and you're really branching to why that makes you a great candidate for OVC, maybe just use more of a personal example. Like, oh, one time I was at a small animal clinic. I had to deal with a difficult client. I know that OVC's curriculum has a course called Art of Vet Med, because you do your research, you want to get into the school. So has this course called Art of Vet Med. And I feel like taking a course like that would help me approach situations like that, difficult situations, better in the future. So it's not like, yeah, it maybe sounds a little cliche. It might sound like every other student, but when I was interviewing, no one told me that I sounded like other people that they were interviewing. So I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think the interviews will be moved to in-person in the future, or do you think they'll always be on Zoom?
I think they will be online.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because the interviews rely, so that's 8 people that interviewed just me, and they probably interviewed others, but that's 8 veterinarians that are quite busy with their full-time job, and it's all volunteer. So it's OVC alumni. And so I think for them, it's like, at least a lot of people seem to be in their home office when I was doing my interviews. And I think it's just easier for them to get more of a turnout if it's online, because they can just do them from home. Again, I don't know. But I think everybody's kind of moving more to that like a little bit
Yeah.
easier lifestyle versus them coming in.
Yeah.
Over time, so this will have to be our last question.
Yeah.
Who's interviewing you? Is it faculty?
I didn't recognize any of the names.
No.
I assume veterinarians, OBC graduates, maybe some people who went back to do their PhD, maybe some faculty. Again, you're really just looking at the camera. I didn't like memorize their faces, and I don't
I
recognize
know, like,
any
none of the profs that we
are
have right now, I don't
interviewing.
really think I saw in my interviews.
Yeah.
I know there was one
At the
person
blue coat.
at our blue coat ceremony who was an interviewer, but
I didn't recognize him.
I didn't recognize him, and I know he's associated just kind of like with alumni and
Yeah.
kind of past things, so he did go to OVC, but
Yeah.
not an active prof as far as we
No,
know.
some of the vets that I work with, they're OBC graduates, and they all got an email being like, "It's interview time. Do you want to volunteer?" So I think it's pretty broad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we could answer more questions, but
Yeah.
that's why we have our email.
Yeah,
So.
please feel free to email us.
Yeah.
We're very happy to help you guys.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much. Can we get a huge round of applause again for our amazing veterans? Okay, so this concludes our event. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out today. And it was so nice of you guys to leave your emails. So they've been kind enough. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. And that's everything for today. So thank you, Sanjoy, Jenna, Alexa, and Victoria. We really appreciate you.
And this recording will also be posted on YouTube, assuming everyone's okay with that. So if people want to go back and reference any of it, it'll be on our Future Vets Club YouTube page. Thanks all for joining online as well. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.